recording. So, anyway, where's your introduction?
Best super class.
It is the best super class ever. And today we're gonna do nouns. So we went over verbs. Before that, we went over adjectives briefly. Today we're gonna go through nouns, and we're gonna look at, first of all, verbal nouns. And I'll explain what that is. We're gonna look at nouns from adjectives that are derived from adjectives. So, what's an example of that in English? In English, we usually add a suffix like ness, you're slow because of slowness, like they actually add a suffix to it, maybe some other suffix. Yeah, we make it into a noun. So the same thing in Hebrew, we have that, so there's a specific suffix you can add. And then there are other patterns, there are a bunch of other patterns we're gonna look at. That's all in this chart that I put together for you guys. So the first thing I wanna look at is the verbal nouns. And here, there are 7 binyanim for verbs that we looked at. But if you remember, I think I said 2 of them don't have any infinitives and don't have any verbal nouns. And that is the pu'al and the hufal. Those are just passive forms of PL and hifil, right? So only the active voice binyanim have verbal nouns. And each one of them has a specific pattern that if you see this verb, you know immediately how to create a noun out of it, right? And then what's the meaning of that noun? We're going to look at see examples so you'll understand what we're talking about here. So we'll start with the form from pa'al, which is the most common type of verbs. So nouns, we're going to do pa'al. Okay, so that's the first one you have there on the sheet. So what are some examples here? So pa'al, you've got 3 letter root. We're gonna do like this. I'm gonna do a box like this. The boxes represent the root, okay, the 3 letters of the root. Okay, so you know that the third person, the most basic form of any verb is the third person masculine form, right? What? If we have time, we'll finish the sentence from last time. So if we have pa'al, we just have the 3 letters, and the vowel is going to be right? So like, for example, first one, bana, right? It's going to be bana, right? So, yeah. Or let's take the second one, let's say katav, right? Hu katav, he wrote. Now, right? For example, right? Katav. Now, how do you turn that into the noun form? Which means writing, right? As a noun. So you take, so the first 2 letters are gonna be together. So you got this vowel here, like the schwa, right? And then you've got you add a yud after the second letter, and then you add a hey after the last letter, and you come up with ktiva. So all of this, so you see the pattern here, right? So you've got like bana. Here, I'm gonna do it in transliteration for you guys to see it clearly. Okay, you got bana. Oops, I'm already writing this way. Bniya. Okay, you've got katav, ktiva. You've got Shava, Shvira. You got it. All right. I'm gonna say you say it after me. Okay. You got Ganav, Neva. Now, so that one's it's Gniva, but it's Gneva. So it's a little bit of a little like sound shift there for whatever reason, but it happens sometimes. Halach. Yeah. Halicha. Okay, Shama. Now here you notice this is Halicha. Why is it not, because we're supposed to have right? No vowel there, but you can't say it, so you have to have there's no way to say Halicha. There's no way to say it, so you have to have a vowel. So sometimes you have to have a vowel, right? So The next one, shama. Like, yeah, shama, shmiya, yeah. Okay, and then kafatz. Yeah.
Why does it say kfitzot?
The plural is the example I want to give. Plural of kfitza is kfitzot, right? So what am I trying to say here? This is always going to be feminine because it ends on hey and it follows that feminine form. So the plural of like ktiva would be ktivot, right? Like writings. That would be the plural of it. And that's going to be standard across the board. You're not going to have any kind of irregular plural for one of these nouns.
Could you translate these pa'al verbs?
Yeah, bana, to build. He built. Katav, he wrote.
So these are verbs, right? So
yeah,
this is.
so so left column.
This is third
verb.
person.
Third person past tense, which is always the most basic form of each verb. So I'm going to say the verb then the noun version of it, right? So bana, he built. Bniya, building, like the act of building, right? Or construction is another word for bniya.
Construct,
Okay? Katav, he wrote. Ktiva, the act of writing. For example, you might say, oh, your writing is beautiful, you know? That in that sense. If I say your writing is beautiful, that's a noun.
Yeah.
Shabbat, he broke. Shvira, the act of breaking, you know. Ganav,
So like
he stole.
that would make sense in driving, right?
Yeah.
Like
What?
the act of break. Okay.
The act of breaking, like, yeah. Or it could be a break, like a break in a, if you're looking at specifically the break on something, you know, the
bell.
the fracture in something. This could be a fracture, it could be, right, something like that nature. Ganav, he stole. Gneva, theft. Okay. Halach, he went, or he walked. Halicha, the act of walking. You might say, oh, walking is difficult for me after surgery, you know. So you would use the word halicha. Shama, he heard. Shmiya, the act of hearing or the sense of hearing. So you could say my hearing is damaged, you know. You could say that. Kafatz, he jumped. Kfitza, a jump. Okay, and then many jumps. Kfitzot. So some of these are not common in plural, and some of them are common in plural, right? Kfitzot was more common in plural, so I use that as the example. So that's one of them, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now that we went through one of them, hopefully we'll go much faster through the rest of them. Because they're all just templates, like this, right? So if I I'm gonna clear this template, I'm gonna do the next template. Nifal. So nifal, we know that is sometimes the passive voice of pa'al, but sometimes it also can be an active voice. But in any case, it will have, I think it will always have a noun associated with it. And that is just like the act of, the act of whatever it is, like, okay, let's do.
Can you remind me what the relation of nifal to pa'al is?
Yes, nifal is oftentimes sometimes it's the passive voice of pa'al. Sometimes it is just its own verb. So like, right, because sometimes people say, oh, it's just a passive voice of pa'al, and then they encounter a verb like nichnas, and they're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Because nichnas means to enter, that's clearly an active voice verb, right?
Yeah.
So it's sometimes active voice and sometimes it's passive voice.
Gotcha.
But it's technically, like, I think it's always intransitive if it's active. Meaning it does not have any object, It's just something that you do like entering or, you know. So, let's take a look at some examples here in Nephi. So this is from Nephi. So let's say, so we got, for example, Nivadai. Nivadai, which is the same root as Havdalah. Like, oh, we have Havdalah. Do we have Havdalah here? No. Like Havdalah when you do at the end of Shabbat and you separate. So it means it has to do with separation. It has to do with being separate, I guess. Hiva lut.
Or to like differentiate.
Hiva what?
To like differentiate.
Yeah, differentiate. And then it's got, so it's gonna be Hivla dut. Hivla dut, yeah. And then Nivne.
So that's a
Or
situation
even
where the consonants get flipped.
No,
No, that's adding the lamed.
that's from Hipal.
Both of the laments are not in the root. Right, the root is nevede.
Yeah, the root is bet dalid right? So the nun is part of nifal of that binyan, right? So that's why you have that.
Why is the lamed before the dalid in the conjugated? Is that because that's the hipalut?
I have a typo.
That's a typo.
Yeah, sorry, it was my typo.
That's it.
Yeah, switch those, that's my typo.
So it's hipalut, right?
Sorry, yeah.
Keep dot.
Hidalut, yeah.
Hivladut, I think it would be.
Hidalut.
Hivdalut, yes, sorry, I'm reading my typo. Hivdalut, yeah. Hibanut. Nichtav. So nichtav is going to be the passive voice of katav that we just saw. Hiktavut. Hiktavut. Nishbar. So this will be,
Ishbalut.
yeah, Ishbar. Very good. So what do these mean? So like nichtav, it was written. It was written, nichtav. This is the act of being written. So the act of being written.
The book. Oh no.
It's very hard to
Act of being written.
It's hard. This type of thing is hard to translate into English. I don't know if there's one word that can sum up this kind of word.
What's the second one?
Second one, nivna. It was built. It was built. Hibanut. The act of being built.
The company.
Yeah, building, a wall, I don't know. So, so this is just a form, I'm just showing you this form. I don't think you'll be using this form frequently, but it exists.
Well, how would you use one of those in a sentence in Hebrew?
I can't think of one.
Okay.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I have at some point in my life, and I don't, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I really can't think of one for that one. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Next one is PL, okay? So PL, so this one is, so for example, we have here like letayed or hutie, right? Okay. So here, I'm gonna write this, I'll write this in,
That'll be Tayal, right? No,
What?
TL.
yeah, TL. So I'm gonna write this with a transliteration for you, so. Okay, T LTA. Okay, the noun will be tiud, right? So tiud means like a trip. Letae means to take a trip, right? To travel. All right. Shider. Shider. Okay. What's that gonna be? You wanna guess?
Shidor.
Shidur. Leshader means to broadcast. Shidur is the broadcast itself. The last one, let's do diber. He spoke. Okay, and then what's it gonna be? You wanna try that one?
Tibor,
Dibur, you got it.
the speech.
Yeah. So, what's another common one that we say every Shabbat, Friday night of this form? Anyone wanna guess?
In what, PL or P?
As we're sitting down to eat, what do we say? Kiddush, we say Kiddush. Kiddush follows the same pattern. Tiud, Shidur, Dibur, Kiddush. Why? Because that comes from the verb lekadesh, to sanctify, which is a PL verb, and so past tense would be he sanctified, hu kiddush. What did he do? He said Kiddush, right? So this is how this verb is formed. That's a verbal noun for PL.
Okay, so he spoke turns into the
Diber.
speech.
Yeah, dibur. Yeah,
Like uttering something.
dibur means speech, exactly.
Or utterance.
Yeah, speech.
I'm just thinking of
Speaking.
biblical stuff, I feel like.
Yeah. Alright, is this one clear? I think it's pretty clear, right? PL. Any questions on this one?
No.
Do next one. Next one is heat title. Heat title. Okay, so
Heat patel, heat palut.
So here we got, I'm gonna give you some examples here. So hit katev, right, means, lehit katev means to correspond, to write back and forth between two people or multiple people. Who hit katev, he corresponded. What is the action of corresponding,
The noun.
also known as correspondence? Hit katvut.
Yeah.
So hit katvut would be, you use this word like,
Message.
send me the hit katvut between you. Okay, that means send me your whole email thread of you writing back and forth, the whole correspondence. That's the word for correspondence, hit katvut.
Heat kat ut.
Hit katvut. So what do? You basically take hit katev, shorten the last syllable, and add ut ending to it. Okay. Yeah, the thing I forgot to mention is, so the ut ending is always feminine. That's the thing about it. The ut ending is feminine. So the plural of hit katvut would be hit katvuyot. Okay, this is the plural. Hit katvuyot. Okay, so you change ut to yot.
That's the plural.
Or the T to yod. Yeah.
That's
the
spelled
plural. What?
Are you spelled it in Hebrew?
Yeah, in Hebrew. Okay.
You know this is
It is Hebrew class after all. I'm trying to make it easier for you guys to see it, you know. He katvut and he katvuyot. Okay, that's how this means correspondence. And this is correspondences. last one we saw with the Nifal also ends on ut, and that's also gonna be feminine. Anytime it ends on ut, this
Why
is.
isn't there a yud by heat?
Which one?
Why isn't there a yud?
There's no yud here in this one. The other one, Nifal form, has a yud. That's just part of the form. It's got the yud in there. And then
The heat pile and
Heat pile does not have any yud between the hay and the top. There's no yud between the hay and the top. Right? In Hebrew, it just goes hay top. And you know that's heat. It's like this. Right? It's just like that. So, so now the other one we saw just now, I forgot to mention PL. All of those are going to be masculine. So like the plural of dibur is diburim. The plural of tiyul is tiyulim. The plural of shidur is shidurim. Right? So that's always going to be standard. What's good about these verbs is like you always know what the plural is going to be. Because they follow a standard form. And so when the ones that are made out of verbs.
Okay.
Yeah, what?
It's gonna be a bad joke.
What?
It's a joke.
Say it.
It is a joke.
Oh, gender joke, those are good.
I can take it.
As long as it's not against my gender.
You protecting me.
I can't have my harassment of Arcadia on the video.
Yeah, save it for later. Okay, so that was one example. So now let's look at the other ones here on this list. I don't know, I don't really feel like writing them all out unless you want me to.
I don't want to.
Good. Next one, hit kasher. Hit kasher means to call or to communicate, right? You can call someone by phone or you can communicate. Okay, hit kashrut is communication.
Heat kashrut.
Yeah, it's the act of communicating. Hit kashrut. Next one, hishtaper. Now this one I'll write out because it's reversed, right? Hishtaper. Yeah, hishtaput, good. Alright, I'm not gonna write it out, I'm not gonna waste my time. Hishtaput is improvement. Okay, hishtaper, he improved. Hishtaput is improvement. Hishtadeh. Hishtadeh means to put forth a lot of effort, to try really hard.
What's the root?
The root is shin dalet lama. So whenever you have the heat pile form, if it starts with certain letters like shin, sin, samech, zayin, tzadi, like these letters, they switch. Okay, this is just one of the rules. I don't know if you remember that one. Did we talk about that one? If you have heat pile, and it starts with the letters like shin or sin or samech, it's gonna switch, as you see here. It switches. So you got
Oh, what is this sama?
yeah
The root's a sama.
yeah the not samech in this case it's shin. So let me write it here. Hishtaper, right? Hishtaper. So it should be if it was like any other word, it should be, right? You would think it would be heat shaper, okay? That's because you have the root here, right? So you got heat shaper, but that's wrong because in Hebrew there's a rule that if it's a shin, it's the first letter, it's gonna switch with the tav, and so it's hishtaper.
Got it.
Now that also happens if it's a samech, that also happens if it's a tzadi, it also happens if it's a zayin. Now what happens now sometimes the tav changes to a dalet, okay?
If it's a Zion.
If it's a zayin, it changes to a dalet. If it's a tzadi, it changes to a tet. Okay, those are just some crazy rules related to this binyan. But, so here we have two examples, hishtaper and hishtadev. So hishtaper, and then you got here, hishtadev. And so it's gonna be hishtaput, for hishtaper, hishtaput, hishtadev, hishtadlut. Hishtadlut is like a lot of effort that you put forth. And Ashkenazim, your rabbi might tell you, hishtadlus. You need to do your hishtadlus. You ever heard that in Ashkenazis? Okay. Okay, that's that word, hishtadlut. It means put forth your effort, do your best, right? And then Hashem will take care of the rest.
So, do less means low.
If you want hishtadlut, you need hishtadlut. So
You stop. Say it again.
if you want hishtadlut, if you want your improvement, you need hishtadlut.
No, but you know the American phrase "do less."
Do less, less is more.
Yeah, how do you say "do less"?
Do less, taseh pachot.
Okay.
Yeah, why? Is there I don't know, was there like a file form for that?
He just wants to know how to translate his life philosophy.
Oh, okay. So yes, this one was heat file, we covered that one. Next one, the last one for verbs, is hifil. Okay, so hifil, so the third person past tense form, masculine form. Okay, we say hifil, right? So hifsik. Hifsik, right? Following that pattern, hifsik. It means stop. It means he stopped, like stop doing something. So the noun of that would be hafsaka. Okay? So here I'll write it in the transliteration. Yifsik hafsaka. Okay, next one, hisbir.
Is it?
And if you ever had the Israeli candy, Pesach Zman, it means like basically a breaking time.
Like a Reese's of recesses.
Okay,
Hasbana.
hafsaka. I'm gonna translate them, we'll go through them right. Yeah, hadracha, right? So look at the pattern here. Got hifsik, he stopped. Hafsaka means a break. Like you take a break, you have hafsaka. Hisbir, he explained. Hasbara, explanation. Or propaganda. Same word.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, what? That's like the name of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the name of that church organization that tries to be Israel.
Yeah.
Yes, it's called
They
propaganda.
literally name themselves propaganda.
Or
Yes.
explanation.
It's very transparent.
They count on you not knowing Hebrew. But no, I mean, it's just in Hebrew, the meaning is like in the root, you know? So like, they don't have a lot of fancy words. Like in English, we have fancy words for specific situations. In Hebrew, it's like we got one word for every situation. So that's what it is. So yeah, hasbara is just, I can just explain to you something, or it can be propaganda. You can translate many different ways into English, because English has so many specific words. But Izrik, he injected, like a shot,
Vaccine.
yeah, COVID vaccine. Hazraka, injection, active injection. Okay, now that's not the word for injection.
That's not the fluid itself. That's
This is, I think,
get your
Hazraka, yeah. No,
get your
it's
vaccine.
injection.
Yeah.
It means Hazraka, like
The
inject.
act, not the
inject.
fluid, right?
Yeah, it means that the act of getting injected. Hidrich, he trained or instructed. So like if you do training, let's say for work or something like that, right? Then you might have to go into hadracha.
What's the root of that?
That's the instruction. This one,
Yeah.
it's the same root as the road, derech. Same root as to step.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Dalet, Rish, okay, Dalet, Rish, and then Kaf.
So he feels active. This is third person active.
Oh yeah, it's active, it's a causative action.
Causative action.
Yeah. Yeah, he dreir.
So he created a way. So he
Exactly, that's exactly it, you like to figure out how it works. Derech has to do with, like, it means way, or it has to do with stepping, okay, like
Path.
walking, like lidroch, like if this is the pa'al of this means to step. Like to step with your foot, to step on something or to step on, yeah, to step on something. Lidroch.
So what would the pa'el to pila be? So it would be dara, which would derech, which would be he stepped.
Oh, so you want to try the pa'al? Okay, so darach, you
Darach.
step, and then the verbal noun for that would be
Pila.
dericha.
Dericha.
Yeah. The act of stepping. But also, lidroch also means to like to cock a gun, to like to pull back the, you know what I mean, on the guns. That's the other one.
Lidroch.
Yeah, lidroch. But then the hifi means to instruct or to train, le'adrich. And then the noun of that is hadracha, which is instruction or training. Yeah, it's like, you see the root can sometimes be very loosely associated, like you said, okay, it's like to help you find a way. Yeah, exactly, that's exactly that. So we went through all the verbal nouns. Oh, and by the way, because that, you see that form that ends on hey, just like the pa'al form, right? Is always going to be feminine. So like the plural hadracha is going to be hadrachot, right? So that's going to follow, all these are going to follow a very standard rule. Now, next box you have here, some unexpected forms, okay? So this is what we're going to go over. Some unexpected forms. Do you have that marker?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
I told you.
Oh, you did? Mine's like running out of juice.
Well, what were you expecting?
I was expecting it to last forever.
Alright, let's open that wire.
It's okay, I have a couple others, they're just thinner. Oh, nice. Alright, we're switching to blue. Alright, so here, these don't match their verbs, okay? This is an example where the noun doesn't match its verb. The noun is formed from like another verb, another binyan, but it's associated with another binyan, right? So like here's some examples. So we have the this is pa'al. I'll do like this pa'al. Okay, rakad, dance. Okay, and then, but the word for dance as a noun is rikud. Right? So you might be like, well, why isn't it like rekida? Well, I think maybe there is a word rekida or it's a theoretical form, I don't know. I can't think of it being ever used. For whatever reason, we say rikud, which is a PL form. Right? But that's the word for dance as a noun, the dance or dancing.
And PL once again is, how does that relate to pa'el?
Okay, so it's usually a more intense form of pa'al.
Yeah, because we don't
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or sometimes it is when pa'al is an intransitive verb, sometimes the PL version is the transitive version of that root, right? Meaning it can take an object, it can act on something else. When pa'al is the intransitive, like it doesn't act on anything else. So, okay, that's one example. So, let's look at some of the other ones here. We've got itchaten, got married. Itchaten, the noun form is chatunah. Which is like a different form, it's not even one that we've seen, right? So in this case, it's not even like related. Pilek, this is PL. Pilek, this is PL. Meaning he distributed, or he divided up, okay? The noun of that is chalukah. Chalukah,
So also like where,
distribution.
like Hanukkah is the same
What?
way, like Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, yeah. Hanukkah is similar to chalukah, and it's not related to like, to the word,
That
verb that it comes from, yeah. Yeah, like inauguration, Hanukkah, but, so another one here, Kibel. Kibel, also PL. But so you would think it would be kibul, right? But it's not. The word, the noun associated with kibel means he received, is kabbalah. Okay, which is not even one of the forms that we saw. It's not even like an example of gakad, kud. This is like a totally different word, not related to any verbal noun. Nilcham. Okay, he fought. Okay, lechima. Lechima means fighting or going to war, fighting war. And then last one here on the list, nichnas, which I mentioned previously. Nichnas means to enter, but it's the noun for entrance is knisa. Okay, so like in this case, these two examples are their nifal, but their verbal noun comes from pa, and for whatever reason, but like there's no pa'al form for these. And by the way, interestingly, both of these are not passive, right? Nilcham and nichnas are examples of nifal that's active voice and in transit, and their verbal nouns are from pa. So maybe that has to do with it. I don't know. I'm not that much of an expert, but all right.
What's
Any
that?
questions on it?
Lechima, that's,
Yeah, lechima. Lechima. It's gonna be. It's just like this. Lechima. And this is also knisa. So, all right. Any questions on this? All right. We just covered all of the nouns that come from verbs and how they're formed. Like many nouns that you're going to encounter are going to fall into one of these forms, right? So like when you see this form like knisa, when you see that pattern where it's like, okay, letter, yud, letter, hey, you're like, oh, I know how to read that because it fits that form. That's how you're really able to read without any dots or anything like that, because you see immediately, oh, it fits one of these forms, so I know how to pronounce it. All right, so now we're gonna look at some other forms. Okay. Next one is nouns from adjectives. All right, so we take some examples here. So the adjective may be et, slow. Okay, we've got mehir, fast. Ratuv, which means wet, and ya'il, which means efficient. Okay, so how do we turn these into nouns? So, well, all you do is add that same ending that we saw before on two of for the nifal and the hitpaya, the ut ending, you just add the vav and the tav to the end of it, and that's ut, to get itiut. Mehir, mehirut. Ratuv, in this case it's retivut. It changes slightly, but similar concept, right? It changes to retivut. Ya'il, ya'ilut. Right? So this is how you The ut ending kind of corresponds to the ness ending in English,
Got it.
or something similar to that. So that one's pretty easy. So you can find many nouns, you can encounter many nouns that have the ut ending,